Hi everyone, I'm really excited to have our first episode of Shakti Kula. I welcome everybody. So today we have a very special guest, Andrea Olivera. Now, Andrea has dedicated her life to the study of Ayurveda, Jyotish, yoga, and the Vedic sciences. And she's actually one of Canada's leading Ayurveda beauty and wellness specialists and educators. So, without further ado, I welcome our Andrea. Hello, Andrea.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
Namaste. Nice to see you.
nice to see you. Thank you so much, Andrea, for accepting to be here live with us today. Um, Now, this is a new project for me, and when I was putting this together, and the first person I thought of was you.
Oh,
So
I'm so excited. Very honored. Thank you so much.
it's my honor to actually have you here. You inspire me in so many ways. And just thinking of bringing women together and sharing this powerful energy of Shakti, of the feminine, and in so many ways, you express it in the way you are and what you do. So,
Oh, thank you. This is wonderful. Well, thank you. We have so much to talk about, so much to share. We're girls, and the Shakti loves to talk and share, right? So,
definitely. So, actually, my first ever question that I've never asked you before is what inspired you in your journey? How this all began for you?
wow. I was raised by five women, and we had a lot of Shakti in our house with five women. My great grandmother, who had gardens, and she really was almost like an omenologist and very mystical woman. And she came from traditional Aboriginal, I'm South American, so she's a native Indian of South America, and her husband, my great grandfather, was actually Armenian, like yourself, mixed. So they were very mystical and very different. But she always taught me about the language of flowers and the language of nature. So she started to teach me as a very young child. And then we moved to Canada. So my aunt and my mother and my grandmother came here, left one aunt and my great grandmother there. So we would travel back and forth. And every time, I would be honored when all five of us were together, and each one of the mothers that I was raised by had a specific craft or gift. And so I was always influenced by understanding nature and herbs, rocks, minerals, healing techniques, and then making of cosmetics and beauty treatments. My aunt was actually Miss Uruguay, and so she had the beauty aspect. And so when I came and grew up in Toronto, my mother enrolled me in sort of beautician courses, and I became a makeup artist at a very young age and started working in the spa industry. But I was always at home continuously being taught the metaphysical sciences. And it was only when I was around 12 or 13 that I found the Egyptian museum. And I would escape to, where they had Tutankhamun's tomb and the stories of embalming. I was fascinated by the ancient Egyptian ways of like embalming the bodies and all the oils and the anointment. And so I started to study that mythology of Egyptology when I was very young. And then by the time I was like 15, 16, I got into the, sort of more of the Asian, like sciences of healing, like Chinese medicine, Japanese mysticism. And then that brought me to Ayurveda. And once I found Ayurveda, it had the language of my mother's. It had that language of like the elemental wisdom and the omenology. So I felt like I entered home, or I felt like I was home with Ayurveda. And so then I started to move into Vedic temples to start learning the lifestyle. So I moved into an ashram. I went to India, lived in many ashrams in India. But in Toronto, I also lived in an ashram and really dedicated my path or my practice to learning, you know, all the different things. And one of the things, you know, in ashrams, women live with women. And so all the matajis, which they call mothers, the mothers of the ashram, they taught me many things. And we're in Toronto, so it's multicultural. So instead of having just Indian mothers, I had Bosnia mothers, and I had Armenian mothers, and I had Persian mothers, and I had, you know, all the Eastern European cultures. So I learned a lot about their home remedies and their pathology of service as a Shakti, as the feminine, how they served their families, and the way that they had their own personal love affair with God. You know, because of our culture and our nationality, we are all going to have a very different expression of God consciousness and the worship of that. I was very inspired by all those connections.
Wow, what a blessing to have all these inspiring women around you. Do you feel
Yes.
like you were meant to be doing this? Was it a sort of a dharma, let's say, or?
You know, I was very blessed that already, you know, my mother, my grandmother, my great grandmother, my two aunts, they already knew what I was going to be when I grew up. And so they started my training very, very young. So, you know, my mother still today, she does tarot readings, and my aunt does energy work, and she also is like a bit of a medium. And my grandmother, who passed away January, she was always, you know, into herbology. And my great grandmother, who passed away, she would have been hungry, and she, you know, passed on those secrets, and they all knew, you know, and they started very young because they loved astrology, and they loved, you know, sort of the divination arts. So when my mother was 15 years old, my great grandmother gifted her a coin of I think it was Saint George slaying the dragon, and said that this was going to be for her firstborn daughter, and that I would be a priestess, and that I would be carrying on sort of the lineage and the family traditions of the divination arts. And here I am, initiated into that path.
Wow. Thanks for sharing that personal story with us. Do you think that there were any challenges for you going through this and learning all of this, being a woman in this, let's say, modern society?
Well, you know, being an immigrant is always a challenge, trying to fit in and trying to understand being a different immigrant, you know, sort of like with my fashion statements and my interests into the occult and the metaphysical arts. I always started to gravitate towards my associations were very multicultural. So all my good friends were Punjabis, you know, and they'd take me to the Gurdwara, or my Guyanese friends who were Hindus, and they would take me to the Hindu temples. So my associations became sort of integrating into families that followed spiritual paths. I would drum with the Rastafarians, and, you know, I had associations with different of the cultures. The challenge I always felt was, you know, within all the cultures, there's always, I witness women having to struggle with cultural rules and the identity that they were, you know, brought up in, and wanting to be the Shakti, you know, the divine feminine, but not knowing the language, not knowing that that's what they wanted to be. And it wasn't about freedom or the feminine rights. It was about the empowering of the natural power that is in the Shakti, in the feminine, in the physical body of a woman. So I noticed that there's the tribal women had that knowledge, and they tried to teach the younger generation, like, you know, the self-worth, and staying within that power and that consciousness. But because of women's natural desires to have many other things, that sometimes got lost. And so I noticed that, you know, sometimes women, we tend to suffer and we tend to feel um, feelings of inadequacies and deep emotional hurts by other people. And then we go through that stage, but then there's a wisdom that starts to happen, and we start to recognize that whenever we want something from someone else that we can't get, it's what we're looking for inside of ourselves. And so women's wisdom starts to grow, and there seems to be a bit of a calming that happens after menopause, a little later after our 50s, where we start entering this kind of like not hunting and grasping, which can cause a lot of challenges. So personally, I'm 52 years old now, and I could say I've calmed that Shakti down. And it's natural because Divine Mother has three aspects of her Shakti. She has the prana that creates this universe with her desire, and then she maintains the universe, she maintains her creation, she nurtures it, she feeds it, she grounds it, and calms all the fears and anxieties like a mother protects her child. And then she destroys it, and transformation happens. So inside of all us women, we have these three aspects of the divine feminine: that part of us that desires and creates, and then that part of us that lives in the maintenance and sustaining that creation, the worlds that we create, our families, our careers, our identities, our reputation. And then there comes a moment where it's time for transformation, and sometimes we tend to destroy or change and transform everything. So after that cycle of creation, maintenance, and transformation or destruction, there comes a settling in the consciousness of the feminine. And I think that's when we start to attain certain types of wisdoms that say you need to keep that in balance and just be. And I think that until we get there, there's always going to be some challenges in our lives.
So would you say that maybe give it some time and those challenges will slowly kind of transform into a different experience as we age gracefully older, right?
Yeah, we have to give ourselves time. And I think the key ingredient is when a woman really understands the reasons why she wants what she wants, why she's doing what she's doing, why she can't get, the things that she's desiring, and why she's suffering about it. When we take time to really understand that, we will transform our consciousness. And when we transform our consciousness, I think there's a natural initiation that occurs in the psyche of a woman, where we naturally become, in a way, a little bit more self-realized, and when there is that understanding, there's compassion, and we tend to have more tolerance and more compassion, for sure, to ourselves and to everything around us.
That's beautiful. And well, for those who don't know what Shakti means or what are the qualities of Shakti, and I cannot think of a better person to ask. So please, can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah. So the word Shakti means energy, and it's the expression of divine feminine energy. And so there's many layers of Shakti. So, I'm a passionate lover of Vedic astrology. And one of the stories that really always has fascinated me is that in Indian astrology, the moon is a male, and he has 27 wives. And these are the stars behind the constellation. So every 2.5 days, that's why the moon changes astrology sign. So every 2.5 days, he visits one of his wives, and these are known as the lunar mansions that the moon travels into. So he stays in one of his wife's house for 2.5 days, and then he moves on to the next one. And I never realized that those lunar mansions, what are mansions? It's like, that's house, a certain energy of the feminine. His wife has a Shakti, it's got an energy. And each individual woman, we have a very unique expression of the essence of love, of the power of the divine feminine, of Shakti. So we have many types of characteristics and qualities in women's consciousness. And so this moon, which is the emotional mind, a representation, is constantly looking, traveling through the experiences of attaining this blessing, this nurturing, this invocation, this adornment of the Shakti's love. And so in a way, our emotional nature, our needs emotionally, are like the child's needs that, when you put a whole bunch of women in a room and one child, all the women's attention is on that child, and the child loves to journey from one to the other, because the child receives a different flavor of attention, of love, of energy. So we, as a embodiment of a part and parcel of the goddess, a divine aspect of the femininity of creation, we have a certain energy. And it's not just because of our race, our culture, our creed. It's the attainment of our consciousness and the expression of the essence of love that we are part and parcel of. And so this moon knows this, so he wants all the different flavors of love. And so he has these 27 wives, and he journeys to have an experience of love. So Shakti is that flavor of energy that is the expression of the divine feminine, and her vehicle is love. Yeah, so I'll take you around my little, and so I have, over here, I don't know if you can see, but Mother Durga, right? And that's Shanti Durga in the form of a peaceful goddess. And of course, every goddess has her lover. So she's got Krishna there. And then inside here is my wonderful secret, you've got Ganesha. And these are the Navagrahas, which are the 9. Can you see? Okay, good. Yes? I'm not
Yes.
sure. You let me know when you can see just by saying yes.
Okay, I think, what is it that you're showing us?
That's the Navagrahas,
Okay.
which are the 9 planets. And then behind here, behind Ganesh, I'll just show you a little bit of the divine feminine. Can you see her? Just tell me when you can see.
I just wanted to check if your mic is on.
Yes.
If you can just double check.
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yes.
I hope everyone else can hear you as well.
Okay. Okay, I'm not sure. So then, and then I have over here, these are the other deities, which are the feminine. I'm not sure if you can see them. Can you tell me yes or no if you can see?
Yes, now we can see.
Yes, okay. And then this last one. So I have many forms of the divine feminine all around. And yeah. So, and I won't show you everything else I have, but my abode is like a temple. So, so basically all the different aspects of the divine feminine are around me. And of course, with the divine feminine, she always has her consorts, which are some of the male gods like Shiva, Krishna, Vishnu, right? Lord Brahm, all those things. So they have to be around too, right? They can't just
Of
be in a
course.
mode of feminine, because then, the women energy, they need the balancing. The yin needs the yang, right? So
Mhm.
the Shiva and Shakti, Ida and Pingala, the sun and the moon. So there's always this understanding.
Mhm. I wanted to ask you, for example, what advice you would give to women who want to express the different qualities of the feminine. And a lot of times in this culture, we women think that there's only one certain quality of the feminine, and if we don't necessarily identify with that one, then we kind of feel like we're not really having that connection within us with the feminine. So how would you encourage women to express it, because I feel it could be expressed in many different ways?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think it's important. There's many layers to your question. The first step always is knowing ourselves. So we have to know ourselves. We have to understand the elemental arrangement that makes up our body mind type. What is that constitution? What is that prakriti, which is our innate expression of an element? So sometimes we don't recognize the simplicity of it. That's what I love Aboriginal sciences, because in Aboriginal sciences, they kind of characterize each person as sort of like a mere reflection of an element. So we have wind goddesses. So when you have a lot of wind in you, then you have a very interesting feminine expression that's a bit masculine and changeable, and it has a lot of different expressions. When you have more water in your body, your femininity is very nurturing and very sensual, because it's the qualities of water. When you have more earthy, you're more grounded and seated and earthy in terms of strength. And fire is, we can tell those fiery, athletic, entrepreneurs, go-getters, and delegators, right? And so those fiery qualities in a woman can be expressed. And so I always find, and then of course Akash Spacey. So you've got the mystical women and the ones that hold space for many people. So when you know your body mind type, you will start to understand a little bit more of that mirror reflection. That's the first step, is awareness of your elemental body, so that you can have elemental wisdom. And on my website, you guys can download a free guided meditation that takes you through that journey of understanding the elements within you. Okay, that's really important. The second part is knowing your cosmic anatomy. That's why Vedic astrology is so important, because it describes to you the star that your ascendant was born under, not just the zodiac sign, but the flavor behind that zodiac sign that flavors the story of gods and goddesses that you may have certain characteristics and qualities of. And then our emotional mind is always, sort of described by the placement of our moon. So then that now tells you another flavor of the Shakti, the energy behind, that emotional nature in our mind. And again, it's like a layering of self-discovery. Then you'll start to see that our actual shape and our actual tendencies are very similar to the different mythological archetypes available in shamanic studies and Vedic studies and Buddhist studies. There's always stories of the feminine. And so that's one layer, is that search. And on the journey to finding or discovering that, we start doing our inner personal purification work, because we have to address the lower nature in us. We have to address the negative emotion that we carry from lifetime after lifetime, because of old perceptions and old consciousness that's blocking and we're stuck in, that we keep repeating certain behaviors. And if our behavior doesn't change, then we can't evolve to the highest aspect of our divinity. So it's really, really important for us to understand that. And it's really important for, for us. I think, am I getting dark? Is because the sun is changing. Is this better? Okay. So just let me know. Just say you're dark, and it's funny because that's another aspect. There is the bright goddess and the dark goddess, and so I'm really demonstrating a live version of that with the shadows behind me, right? So just say dark goddess is on now, and I'll change to the light. But so basically, this your question is very layered and it's very complicated. It's not that simple. There's no one-way track. And that's why, the stories of Kali are so beautiful, because, there's these 10 forms of the divine goddess. And, all the stories show the different forms. So I think starting a very deep, profound research of your behavior, your consistent reactions to life challenges, and your belief systems, what you believe about yourself, about life, about God, and then start to transform those lower natures, that lower consciousness, into more of divine qualities. One of the ways to do that is always a woman. To get your power, you have to identify that saboteur that lives within us, that wants to sabotage our success. And that saboteur could be the consciousness of ourselves as a little girl that's taking a tantrum, or a fierce teenager that's angry and wants to destroy, or a woman that's blocked and stuck because she's frozen in fear, or she's flying away because she is faced with certain things and she can't digest that. So or she's fighting through life challenges and doing her purification practices and putting herself under pressure to perfect. And so there's fight, flight, and freeze that happens to women. And so again, your question is very complicated, and it's the whole journey of personal self-discovery. Because once you enter into the domain of understanding yourself, know thyself, then you can heal thyself. And that's the motto I operate from. Most of the time when clients come to me for, their Vedic astrology reading, or karma, emotion release therapy, or Abhyanga facial, or anything, or just a simple skincare regime, I get them to really understand themselves. And I spend a lot of my time teaching people about their cosmic anatomy and their elemental sort of body-mind type, so that that knowledge can really help expel the darkest part of that's blocking them, and that's stopping the transformation to get to the real self, which is a part and parcel of that divine feminine Shakti.
Thank you, Andrea. One more question in terms of society, let's say, how can parents create a space for young daughters or children to grow in this and to explore further, or what can we do as adults to inspire the new generation?
Yeah, I think in ancient Vedic civilization, there was always this, and still today in parts of India, China, and in different sort of shamanic cultures, there is this understanding of the planet's light that shines upon us at the time of our birth, and that indicates our life purpose, our dharma. So if parents understood their child's life purpose at a very young age, that's why in Indian culture it's a ceremony when the child is born. The astrologer is there taking down the time of birth, date of birth, place of birth. And then when the baby's 1 year old, they have this party and they invite all the community, their friends, and the astrologer starts to read what this child's life purpose is. And that, when it falls upon the ears of the community, then the community holds the vision for that child. And then all the training, the teachers, all the support starts to happen to help that child become that artist or become that doctor or become that warrior. There is a community sort of support system, and I think that that's the first key, is that we have lost that support system and we need that back. And the way to do that is by starting to look at ancient civilizations that hold keys to building a better community. And then what we can teach the women or young women in our generation now is that there's no benefit in comparison. And when we compare ourselves to another Shakti, another energy, another woman, that comparison can cause us self-hatred. And I think, when I spent about 14 days in Dharamsala, India with the Dalai Lama, the first thing he said was, oh my God, there is this disease in human consciousness that is this disease of comparison. And when a human being compares themselves to another human being, they lose the knowledge that we are meant to be extremely unique individual part and parcels of aspects and mirrors of divinity, and that by comparing ourselves to another person and trying to be like them, we lose the opportunity to live authentically in our unique expression of that form of divinity. And what happens is we start training ourselves, and we start training our children really to start self-hatred. And when you have self-hatred, it's because we're comparing ourselves. So if we could just stop that right there, we would be so okay. And it starts with, the artists in the group. When you take pictures of beautiful beings, take pictures of the 3 body types and let the vatas feel beautiful for being that body, mind, constitution, and the pittas for being that muscular, athletic, powerful lioness, right? And then the kaphagenic person that's very watery and very earthy, let them feel good in their form and appreciate the elements in their own unique beauty and the manifestation of that in the individual personalities and body types and shapes. So the artists used to paint all forms, right? They used to paint these voluptuous beauties and then these very thin and very muscular. So we have to bring that back. So the artists, they have to write poems about the shapes that they love and the natures that they love. And artists have to capture the vision of those different shapes and sizes and elemental expressions in the different body types with their paintings and their stories. So if we bring that back, that awareness and that acceptance in our culture and in our community, what ends up happening is that we start accepting individual body mind types. And then an earth body that's square or a water body that's naturally round will never try to be an air body, which is like a twig that is very tall and thin or very short but small boned. You see, and so we stop this trying to be something that we're not. And that's the key, and that's what we should teach our children. I don't know what I did there. Did I change?
I think it's all good.
Okay.
That's good. Thank you. That was really beautiful and really wonderful advice. And I feel probably as adults, as we do our own work, then we will be more available as well to create that for everyone else, either for the next generation and as artists or whatever work that we're doing. Now, the work that you do is absolutely empowering. I've had the opportunity to learn with you, to receive your services. And what really strikes me is that wonderful acceptance and love and caring and such an empowering way, whether it's about beauty in a spa services or astrology, whatever you offer, it's really empowering everyone. Could you tell me a little bit more in detail about what you do, where you're located? I know you also offer services online as well, so let's hear more about your work.
Yeah, my work. Well, 34 years I've been in the spa industry, so I train anyone that wants to get into the healing arts how to do Ayurveda, facials, massage, Indian head massages. And you can come to Toronto where I have my business and my training center, and also my product distribution. So I have a Ayurveda rituals company that produces products which are organic Ayurvedic skincare and botanical perfumes, and then I also train people into becoming Ayurveda spa specialists, and then provide services like the facials and Abhyanga Ayurvedic massage and the warm oil that pours over the third eye, the Shirodhara. And some of those things I do online. So I'm going to be launching my educational programs. Like, especially I train a lot of yoga teachers that want to cross over into the healing treatment room. So I'll be launching the Indian head massage for yoga teachers on the mat, but also for massage therapists, nurses, and anyone wanting to start a career into the healing arts. They can learn. That's a good starting place to begin. And then I offer treatments in Toronto. I also offer my karma life readings and karma emotional release therapy on Zoom and or Skype. So we have these opportunities to do long distance readings. And, you just have to email me and set up a time and an appointment, and then we take care of you. I always need your time of birth, date of birth, and place of birth. So sometimes people don't know, and I always recommend that you start that research. Try to find to the closest time that you were born as possible. So interview your family, your parents, and then sometimes you have to go to the hospital that you were born in and look at hospital records. And sometimes baby pictures have the time written on them, but it's always good to try to find out the exact time that you were born.
And that's great. We have also beneath the video the link to your services, actually Ayurveda rituals, so you can find Andrea's services and whatever she's offering online or in person. All the links should be there.
Thank you.
I don't know if you wanted to add something.
Um, I always I believe, I'm a kaphagenic woman. I'm very watery and earthy. So my nature is to give gifts and to be generous. And sometimes that's a power of the Shakti, is that she's always understanding the level of the energy that she can give and what she has to preserve. And so an old wise feminine teacher who taught me a lot about healing and energy, she taught me that a wise woman always reserves 20% of her Shakti, her prana, her life force energy, her strength for herself. And that, I think that if we could all learn to integrate that, like out of 100, we're always giving 80% or sometimes 95, sometimes 99. And we have to train ourselves at a very young age to keep the minimum of 20% of energy for ourselves and our nurturing and our personal self-care, and not to feel that our personal self-care is only external, our hair, our nails, our makeup, our clothing. It's an internal healing. And so we need time to grieve in community with other feminine energies. We need more sisterhood, more sister associations. That means that we actually need time to build deep, trusting relationships with other females, and that's a very tribal, survival. And one of the things that this society is doing is it's separating women, and women are isolating. And so, yeah, it's very important to reach out to other women and learn to be a trustworthy friend and companion, and learn that by trusting yourself and trusting another person. And I'd like to end with one goddess code. And this is controversial, and this is a challenge for some, but there's a goddess code that is secret and sacred. And that is that the feminine divine always respects the territory, the Shakti, and the energy of the other Shakti's creation. So there is a mutual respect of boundary, of territory, of understanding, and glorifying that other Shakti. We have lost that. To glorify our sister, to praise our sister, to let her shine, to give her a moment. And so when we bring that back, that love flow between the sisterhood, then you'll notice that the divine feminine expresses herself amongst every individual aspect of her personality, which is us, the feminine, women in the body of the feminine. And there'll be a lot more peace.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. I totally agree. And well, this project, it's a little bit about that as well, to just bring on board the wonderful women and to just inspire each other in many ways. So I want to thank you, Andrea, for being here. I really appreciate
Thank you for doing this service. Thank you for doing this service,
you.
and Goddess blessings to you, to bring this knowledge to all, people, not just women, but men too. Remember, whether we want to or not, all women are mothers, and therefore, if we take the responsibility to nurture all our children, creation, men, society, then we start to really bring that Shakti to life, and the care of the Divine Mother, the Universal Mother, through each and every one of our own individuation.
Absolutely.
So thanks for doing this.
Thank you.
It's great seva to the Goddess. You're doing great seva to the Goddess.
Thank you, Andrea. It's been such a
all.
pleasure. Thank you. And I mean, like you said earlier, we could talk about this for many, many hours, but I think it kind of introduces a little bit about what Shakti is and how it can be expressed. And thank you so much for all your knowledge. And please, everyone, check out Andrea's website. She has beautiful products as well, and she has prepared them with care and with a lot of research and knowledge as well. Thank you, Andrea.
That's great. You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Take care. Namaste.
Namaste.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. I hope you enjoyed our episode with Andrea Olivera. And I invite you to subscribe to the channel and share with friends. And check out our next episode soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.